non mollava mai, quello che doveva fare stare sempre su il morale, ma io mi ci trovavo bene perché sono sempre stato uno che mi piaceva dare fuoco ai miei compagni, caricarli prima delle partite.
Il mio sogno che si è avverato è uno dei sogni dei bambini, di tanti bambini.
È un qualcosa per la gente che riusciamo a fare diventare matti, riusciamo a fare diventare felici e contenti.
Con questa maglia devo veramente fare una performance diversa perché sto rappresentando uno dei club più grandi al mondo.
Hi everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good to be here. That's all I can say. As Milanisti, good to be here, but could we be here with better news? Maybe not, let's explore. But it's always good when the best co-host that you could ever hope for is around. Mr. John Lab Gorilla, how are you doing?
Hey, Husney, you all right, mate? Yeah, it's a weird one for us doing it on a Monday, but life is such. In the UK yesterday, we had Mother's Day, so I was busy doing my
Happy
husband
Mother's Day.
duties. Yes, I was doing my husband duties, and so I couldn't get to do a pod. But we're here today, so we're going to be just under an hour probably because I've got to go and pick up the kids later on. We've got to cover two games, and also we're going to start with a bit of an interesting topic, which is something that Hasni has done some hard research on, and we're going to talk about it. And so, Kim's already here. Good morning, sir. I know it's early morning for you. You win the prize for the most keen subscriber.
First one through the door.
It's crazy, man. 1 a.m. over there drinking his coffee. Right, Hasni, do you want to do the screen share? Or I've done the screen share. You got control, I think.
Yep. Why
Let's
is
get
this
on
thing
with it.
not slow?
Here we are. Right, okay,
Here we
so
go.
we've called this episode. Let's just get this laser pointer out. Okay, let's go. We called this episode Turkish Delight. It's a lovely thumbnail that Hasni created. Why is that? You remember in a previous episode, there was quite a few discussions regarding what's going on with Turkish football. Why does it seem to have acquired so many high-value players? And so Hasni did research into this. And so Hasni, you take control. You told me when to change the slides, yeah?
Yeah. So there's something we wanted to address because everyone's been wondering is that why is Turkish football the way that it is in the sense that it's got gathered quite a bit of news in the past few years. But that being said, is that it's not really something that's new. I mean, Turkish clubs have always been on the radar. So this is something that we wanted to explore further because there is that quite strong connection between Serie A, even our club with other Turkish clubs. So I just wanted to delve a bit deeper. But before that, I just want to go through a bit of history about Turkish clubs. So John, if you next slide, please. Uh, so these are the names of the big clubs that most people would know in Turkey. So we have Galatasaray, Fenerbahce, Besiktas, Trabzonspor. Sorry if I mispronounce it because the name is a bit difficult for me. And Başakşehir. But yeah, I guess the top two clubs, which is Galatasaray and Fenerbahce, have been the clubs that have really taken the stage in terms of European football and what we can expect. So what we can see, and for those who can see the table, I took a screenshot about what it does look like a bit currently. So Galatasaray is on top, Fenerbahce, and essentially Turkish football is ruled by these five clubs, really. But I do want to take it really a bit further into what are they like at the European level. So okay, before we go to Europe, Galatasaray is actually the most well-decorated club in Turkey. They have 25 titles, and if you look at their logo, 1905, they're not too far away from Italian football in terms of the establishment. Fenerbahce also not too far away. Uh, then we have a lot of the newer clubs, which is Trabzonspor and Başakşehir. Okay, I might have to call that something else because I think I'm butchering the name. But Galatasaray, For those who remember, they've been a force, not a big force, but a notable force, um, maybe at the turn of the century. So they made the quarterfinals in the Champions League. So that's 2001 season. Then slightly, well, was considering a bit old, so quite some time ago now, 2012, 2013. Then yeah, but beyond that, it's been in the group stages quite often. Then semi-finals of the European Cup, so that was back in the late 80s. Fenerbahce, yeah, quarterfinals, 2007, 2008. So about the around the same time that Galatasaray has been there, but Fenerbahce in total domestic titles only about 19, so not that many. Group stages about the same. Besiktas, similar thing, and yeah, you would say that they have been hovering around the group stage and also reaching around the quarters. But Galatasaray have won the UEFA Cup and the UEFA Super Cup in 2000. So that was probably as the best that they could do. So that was, yeah, at the turn of the century, really. But what you expect, and on the next slide is, and that was put into context about why it's important to mention these five clubs. Next slide, please, John. This is a map of Turkey, and if you see the bottom, legend, and where these clubs are based, you start to notice something. These clubs mostly are Istanbul based. So when we talk about the biggest clubs in Turkey, they're actually based right out of the capital city. And one thing that I just want to point out is that, yeah, they're not every province you could say is really represented in Turkish football. And if we want to talk about it a bit further, then in European football, definitely they're not going to be there. But yeah, it really this is what will lead up to the next few slides in terms of setting up, but why this is very important and how this then plays a part in them being, you know, big spenders in Europe, if I could say that. So, John, the next slide, please. Yeah, if you didn't know, I think this is very important about some of the names that you might have heard of that have all played in Turkey. So, if we talk about some of the stars and the big money move transfers that they've attracted some big names here. Yeah, Serie A names, some famous names. Our dear Frank Ribery, who I think retired in Serie A, also was with them quite well, not too long, but he was in Turkey as well. So some of the big names, and yeah, this is excluding some of the ones that we've seen quite recently. Um, but this is a question to you, John. Can you name a few famous managers that have actually coached in Turkey?
Oh, famous managers that have coached in Turkey.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of really big names. I mean, I'm gonna guess obviously the guy that we had at Milan. Obviously, what was his bloody name? The Turkish manager we had. What was his bloody name?
I can't remember. That was actually not on my list, but good one. Good
Yeah,
shout
I
there.
mean, yeah. Uh, I'm gonna guess. I'm gonna guess. Okay, can I guess? Trapattoni, has he done it there?
Oh, I'll have to
Oh,
Google
Fatih
that.
Terim, of course. Fatih Terim, yeah. So that's
Yeah.
one. So we would know him. I'm trying to think of like other managers that are like for players like these. Hmm.
Okay,
I'm
Mourinho,
gonna get
it's quite recent, yeah. Fenerbahce.
any
Mourinho was
any.
there.
No, I don't know any of the Inzaghi brothers.
Nope. But let me
No,
put this name out to you, yeah. Do you
yeah.
know Frank Rijkaard used to coach Galatasaray?
No, he did not.
Yeah, 2009, 2010. Roberto
Wow.
Mancini, Galatasaray as well. And they also won
Mancini,
the,
Roberto Mancini.
yeah,
Seriously, I thought he would have.
yeah,
See, I'm getting
one
confused between
season,
the
13
Saudi
to
league.
14.
I get confused between the Saudi league and this, and because I see them as just as wealthy as each other. But Kim brings a great point, which is Mourinho and
Yeah, Mourinho,
Solskjaer.
yeah. Yeah,
Um,
Solskjaer. Joachim Low,
Mourinho,
famous German coach, yeah, for the national team.
really, Joachim Low.
Yeah.
Wow. No, that's quite
Fenerbahce,
crazy.
98, 99. And I didn't expect this name, yeah?
No.
The Brazil coach. Sorry. The Spanish national coach. What? Vicente del
Bosque.
Bosque. Is that what it?
Yeah.
Bosque, yeah.
Vicente del
Yeah.
Bosque. Oh, wow, really?
Besiktas, 2004, 2005. So this about the 2000s is really when they started to do well in the European stage. So not only do we have famous faces that have played in Turkey, so these
Mm.
are past players. We'll talk about a bit about the recent transfers in a bit. But yeah, they've also had famous managers. So this Turkey being on the radar has not been something that's very recent. It's actually been there for what, 20, 30 years. But I can
Mm.
expect that they are going to be a force that's really going to be reckoned with. But I'm going to put that into you could say, a narrower lens and explain it a bit later.
Okay.
And let's move on to the next big transfers, and these are the recent names. Next slide, please. Yeah, look at these names, okay?
Man,
Leroy
that's crazy.
Sané,
Yeah.
Osimhen, Wilfred Singo, our target, yeah?
Wow.
Galatasaray, Guendouzi, this is quite recent. Sofian Amrabat, yeah? Ederson for Man
I
City.
did
By the
not know
way,
Edison was
yeah,
there.
yeah, Ederson's there. And yeah, let's talk about some of the other names.
There's
Zaniolo,
more.
Tammy Abraham, quickly, yeah. Tammy
Yeah.
Abraham, I think it was like a bit of a flash sale in and
Yeah.
out. And Piontek
Oh, God.
and Morata.
Krunic.
But I
Krunic.
do. I thought Krunic is in um what's the name in Red Star Belgrade? Yeah? Well, I don't know. Maybe let me Google that. I think as my favorite player of all time. Where is Freddie
Uh,
Krunic now?
Krunic and Turkey.
Yeah, he's playing is in Serbia, Red Star Belgrade.
Has he gone
Oh,
back,
he
has
was
he?
there. Maybe, yeah, maybe he was in
He's
Turkey
played at
before.
Fenerbahce,
Red
hasn't
Star.
he?
Oh, okay. Yeah, our
Yeah.
dear Krunic. But look at some of the names that they've gotten recently. Marco Asensio, Milan Skriniar, N'Golo Kante, that's Fenerbahce.
Wow.
Uh, for Besiktas, they have Inter's once rising star Aslani, who I think they've dumped in there. Onana, Trabzonspor. But
Wow.
there's one thing that I do want to really tell everyone if you're listening, and this applies to only a few clubs. What is their net spend? And when I talk about net spend is how much have they spent versus how much they've sold. Let me put these
Mm.
numbers out, yeah? And this is in millions of euros.
Okay.
Fenerbahce, minus 72 million euros.
Oh.
Besiktas, minus 28. So they've spent 28 million more euros than they've managed to sell.
Mm.
And this is the big one, and this is for last season. Galatasaray, minus 157 million. Half of that
Wow.
just for Osimhen.
Wow.
Big numbers. You can't even expect Milan to pay anything close to these numbers when it comes for player purchases. But in Turkey, yeah, they've done it. And I would say that even players like Sane, he's not old, by the way. Sane, I think, is 29 when I checked. So these are, so they're getting into the phase where if they sense the opportunity, they're willing to pay the money and they can get these names. They are still good. So these aren't like our 34, 35 players or 40. We talk about Modric. Huh? So yeah, if you talk about that 1-0 win by Galatasaray, it's actually not a surprise if you can get these names. But
Mm.
the last slide, I'll actually explain why this is such. Yeah? So this is the how.
Okay.
Next slide, please. What's different is that Turkey, the clubs are owned by the members, yeah, except for Fenerbahce, which is just a rich guy, a rich family owning it. But they've had their issues. 2019, so it's really accumulation about the debt that they've hit. It's about the 2 billion. But and I think this is very different to what's happening in Spain, where the banks are willing to support. But this is the part where I think it explains really about why Turkish football is maybe in its ascendancy or on this high of a spending pattern. Galatasaray, sorry, the spelling mistake there, but Galatasaray, their real estate, yeah. So their training ground itself, where they play in Turkey, which is what I read to be near quite an affluent area, it's worth 500 million. So they've entered into quite a lot of real estate deals and able to monetize that particular property. Same thing with Fenerbahce. But beyond these two clubs, a lot, if you talk about the net spend, it's not been really that impressive. So outside of the top five, you talk about maybe a net spend of -5, -3.5. So it's not a lot, yeah. So this
Mm.
Turkey, the way that I see it is that they are turning into, you could say, a very much more acute version of the Bundesliga. Big clubs at the top and everyone else below that. I don't know, maybe even you compare them to La Liga at that level. But what they've really been able to do when it comes to attract the players, because paying big bucks isn't just enough. You got to have to attract the players to want to play there as well. So playing in Europe, yeah, you can players can earn euros, and the clubs earn euros as well because, yeah, if you talk about the inflation rate, I think after COVID, what I read is about 86% inflation in Turkey. So if you talk about
Mm.
Turkish lira, paying them it's not going to be a lot. So they're able to get revenue in euros, and their transfer windows closes later than um, other countries, and they have a flat 20% income tax. Which, if you talk about the growth decree, I don't remember, John, how much was it
Mm.
for the
I
growth
thought it was
decree in
fifty
Italy? But
percent.
yeah, yeah.
I thought it was
So
fifty
it's
percent.
quite attractive, yeah.
Mm.
And what I did hear is that for Osimhen, he's getting something like net like 25 million. So they're able to pay a star of that quality. So that answers really my question, and I asked you quite a few pods back about why no one's picked up Osimhen. Well, I guess after my research, it answers itself, right? Osimhen doesn't want to leave.
Mm.
No one is going to pay him that
Yeah.
big bucks, and he's still within that orbit of playing in Europe. So yeah, I think that answers really or explains a little bit about Turkish football. So if I was to really forecast this forward, I wouldn't say that Turkish football is going to be the new EPL or Serie A, but Galatasaray and Fenerbahce, you can't count them out. They can be big spenders. They have the ability to be big spenders, and they are slowly attracting younger and bigger players into the roster. So will it be? I don't know. Maybe if we make Champions League for next season, if you play Galatasaray, definitely not a pushover, especially the way that we're playing.
Mm. Right. Oh, Kim has been busy texting and sending all the names. Rade Krunic, Mourinho, Solskjaer, Lucescu, Lucas Torreira, Gundogan,
Yeah, this
Icardi,
is
Archie Brown, Denis Vasquez, Onana, Stefan Savic, Leo Duarte. I mean, yeah, clearly they've had an influx of players, and because of this tax system's quite a healthy one, they've got some very rich clubs as well. I mean, training ground worth 500 million. What on earth? That seems a dodgy deal to have achieved that. Sounds like you remember Real Madrid, or what was it? No, it was Man City sold the naming rights to their stadium for a stupid amount of money that covered most of their debts, and no one batted an eyelid. Said, "Okay, yo, if that's what it is, that's what it is." Um, oh yeah, so great, Hasni. Yeah, that kind of explains why. And yeah, there's no reason for Osimhen to go anywhere. Also, the other thing to say is, the weather's great, the food's fantastic, and the passion in the fans is enormous, isn't it? Let's not beat around the bush. They've got some real passionate fans. From everything we've seen in their history, they're pretty decent clubs, and so yeah, yeah, well
yeah,
done to
a
them.
classical. I think it's not like our derby, their classical or their derby between Fenerbahce and Galatasaray. I mean, that can turn violent anytime. Do you remember the case a few years ago where there's practically a riot on the pitch, right?
Oh, really? Is it right on the pitch? No, I don't remember that. No, no, no.
Yeah,
But it doesn't
it happened
surprise
a
me
few years
too
ago. That
much,
was
to
in
be
Turkey.
honest.
Yeah.
I still remember all the days when people turned up there and it was like, "Welcome to hell." I was like, "Oh Jesus!" But no, no, good, good. So Turkish football is very rich. One is which club is it that's owned by a billionaire?
It's Fenerbahce.
Fenerbahce.
That's
Okay,
Mourinho's.
Fenerbahce.
Yeah,
Oh, right, right. Well, Mourinho's now in Portugal, back in Portugal, isn't he? Didn't
yeah, he's back.
exactly.
Yeah,
Okay, cool. So
yeah, but to pay Mourinho, they paid quite a pretty penny for him. Yeah.
I bet, I
Okay,
bet
now
they
back to
did. I mean, they
reality.
must be paying enormous amounts for the coaches to come down. Um, right, hasn't he? So the league table as it stands today. Here we are. That's great. League table as it stands today. Inter are on 68 points. Goal difference of 42. They've had the last 5 games, 3 wins, 1 loss, obviously against us, and then a draw against Atalanta. Milan are second, 8 points behind. We'll discuss this. 2 wins surrounded by 2 losses, and Napoli are now on a run of wins, 3 straight wins. Como are the danger team, and we could see it coming really in the fixture list that them and Juventus were, unfortunately, it's come to pass exactly what I expected, which is I looked up Roma's fixture list, and I really worry these days when Roma score an early goal, because I think they always give up goals in the second half, and the fact that they drew with Napoli and Juventus has really, really cost them. But yeah, we'll have a look now, because the moving table that we use has now been adjusted, because Como are now in 4th place. But be aware of this. Inter are now 8 points clear. Napoli are 1 point behind. Como are 6 points behind. Juventus in 5th place are 7 points behind, right? So that's something to be very aware of. The fact that the distance between 1st place and 5th place is actually smaller, the distance to 5th place to us. So if anyone out there, and I said it last night on the Rossoneri chat, I said to them, if anyone is out there still believing that Milan's going to win the league, then you better also be prepared to believe that Milan could drop out of the top 4. I don't think either is true. I think Milan stays in the top 4 as it currently is. Okay, so breaking news. The Inter derby, of course, Lautaro didn't actually play.
Start with the good news first, right?
Well, I mean, Lautaro's a funny one. He hasn't got a record of doing very well in big games, to be honest. He doesn't. But it was a strange game. My takeaways from that game, Husney, were this. It felt like it was one of Milan's easiest games this season. It's the first thing to say. I thought Inter looked completely out of ideas and completely gassed. And to my surprise, Milan were actually able to hold the ball quite well, because Inter was so passive. I think when I saw the lineups and I saw that Kivu had basically been forced to put Mkhitaryan in midfield, I realized that Milan had a huge opportunity. And I'll tell you the truth, Milan were huge kind of betting odds against Milan, because Inter was so far ahead. But actually, when I saw the lineup, I put a couple of pounds, actually £4 on Milan to win. So it was a really nice little earner for me. What's crazy is that when we were lining up our team, instead of Bartesaghi, he put out Estupinian. I think Bartesaghi was recovering from a knock from the previous game, if I remember correctly. And nothing really about this game shocked me. Yes, they had a momentary lapse because, as I said before, Inter are not a wonderful team. They're not this brutal team anymore. But they have their weaknesses, as shown in Europe. They get caught out all the time, and this pattern that Inter is losing or failing in playing against decent teams continues. And I knew that this match would be something that could really scare Inter fans into thinking we are an unstable club and we could potentially, looking ahead, lose against all big teams. There was a bit of an incident right at the end. People were talking about a handball incident. I'm not sure about that. I think an impartial me would say, if it was the other way around, probably I would say that's a penalty. It should be given as a penalty. For whatever reason, they decided that his hands were by the side of his body and therefore fine. So the penalty wasn't given. I think that was the final decision. But I still think a Milan victory was well-deserved. I think it was really comfortable, actually. in my opinion. Husney, how did you see the game?
Yeah, I agree with what you said. So in the first derby, and everyone knows that this was being said, it was actually Inter against AC Milan. In this
Yeah.
game, the pressure wasn't piled on Manyan as much. So you could say that Inter, I wouldn't say we did better, but actually Inter did worse in this game. They had good chances. So what I'll really pin it down to Inter is that they're not clinical. I don't know why with us in the past several games now, they've not really been that clinical. They have good chances. No one can
Huh.
deny that. They've actually got good chances. So I don't think we were really bossing them up and down the pitch. But when it comes to, and this is why it's funny to watch it, you know, Uncle Sharma, and big shout out to Uncle Sharma, who streams right after games. So he made the point, and I think every uh, Milanistas was quite surprised that our two most unexpected players were the ones that really led the goal. So that was Fofana and Estupinian. Uncle Sharma put it rightly when he said that our meme players
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
the ones that scored the goal. So I wouldn't have expected them to do so, but we'll take it. And by slim margin, it's still a lot to play for. But after that, yeah, Inter, I wouldn't say they really had that much more quality come out the bank. Still threatening, but not enough to say that, absolutely unlucky. I thought the best chance they had was actually that DiMarco, the one where he skied it over the bar. Had he
Hmm.
kept it down, could have reacted. It would have been in the back of the net. But
Yeah.
too bad for him. Good news for us, I guess.
Yeah.
But
I think. Yeah. Go on.
yeah, this result, if you ask someone like me, and I'm not making a secret, is that I do want us to win, not just this game, but we'll get to like, I want us to win in the bigger picture as well. Did lift a lot of spirits because in the previous game, the previous part, we did say that the derby is slightly different. But when we talk about next game, you'll see why. Beneath it all, we're still the same old Milan.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Absolutely. So let's have a look at a few stats from this game. Actually. Yes, Estupinian celebrating. That was a sight. I remember there was a really good picture of Estupinian scoring the goal. Leao running behind him, looking back at the bench, going, "Oh my god, he actually scored a goal!" Like he was shocked, and I thought, yeah, well, he should be because he's been one of the worst signings I think that Milan have made, and but this is Inter's own fault, hasn't he? They left themselves completely open to the counter, and this is the problem that I think Inter are going to have. We've got such different problems. Our squad is way too thin. We need a lot of signings in the summer, but their squad has got too many uh, players that have to be replaced because the goalkeeper needs to go. Mkhitaryan, I mean, you can't possibly start a game with Mkhitaryan. You might want to use him for 10 minutes or something. To start a
Yeah,
game
but
with a player like that,
Hakan's
yeah,
been out for quite a while, I think, this season, and quite often as well. So
yes, that's
I,
another
I
one.
saw the Inter channels; they didn't want Mkhitaryan to start anyway.
No, no, nobody wants it. But the I think I heard Hakan is going to be out for quite a long time now because he didn't play against Atalanta either because of his injury problems. So when you look at the actual stats, you realize it kind of looks like an even thing. Okay, Inter had more of the ball, but I can tell you that possession that they were having was pointless. Inter was just, I don't know what they were doing in the first half. They seemed to be something I want to bring up before this game. Inter played a Coppa d'Italia fixture against Como, and they almost had zero XG, hasn't he? They literally just passed the ball between themselves and did nothing. And both clubs did nothing. And it was as if they, before the game was played, shook hands on it and said, let's just save energy, both of us, and take it to the San Siro in the next leg and make it decisive then. Um, and I thought, okay, so they've done this to rest players for the Milan derby. And actually, no. Inter kept playing that way against us. They were just doing nonsense sideways passing between them. And I did think, if Milan want it, it's there for them to take it. And, was it Luis Enrique or whatever his name is? I don't know what his name is. It's a terrible player that they've got some really bad signings in that squad. And as I said, you can't expect Mkhitaryan to hold down that midfield. He's never gonna do that. And I think Inter fans knew it too. And I think this didn't come as a surprise for them that they were going to lose the game. But they thought 10-point lead comes down to 7. Everything's going to be fine, right? Obviously, let's talk about the following game. They had Atalanta, and that they played that game before us, hasn't he? And they drew that game with Atalanta. And you were texting me, and you were like, "Oh, why do all these teams fold against Inter? Because Inter were winning 1-0." But then, lo and behold, what happens? Atalanta scored the equalizer. Now, I watched the highlights of that game, Hasni, and a couple of contentious issues out there regarding potential penalty shouts for Inter. But I'm not getting involved in that at all. I'm not interested in
Burla
that
one, is it?
stuff. Huh?
Are you talking about the Burla incident?
I don't know which player it was. I can't even remember, dude.
Yeah.
I just kind of like said, whatever, you guys go and complain about referees as much as you like. It doesn't mean anything. You're not getting the points back. But that made them very worried because Milan, then Atalanta. Basically, every single decent team they have faced, they have lost. Now, maybe they will lost or drawn against, and they will say, well, we beat Roma, we beat Juventus. At the time that we're playing them, those teams are not in a good place. Um,
Yeah, I'm still gonna hold it against them that Juventus result. I thought that what.
that's dodge as well, isn't it? Yeah, that was dodge too. Anyway, so I would say, they got the point against Atalanta, and they thought, oh Jesus, 2 points dropped. Milan are going to win tonight. Here we go. The gap is going to become 5 points. And then next week, Milan's playing Torino ahead of the Inter fixture. It'll be 2 points. So they really got scared. They really got scared. And, some Milanisti got hopeful. Some Milanisti thought, forget everything we've seen during the season. Forget the fact that we've just,
Put your hands
lost
up.
at
Look at
home.
that Milanistic.
Yeah, well, yeah, there you go. Right, there's a Milanista right there in front of me who's like, yeah, we can do it. And in fact, we go to Lazio having not lost. Mkhitaryan should have had a hair transplant when Inter were in Istanbul for the final loss against City. He could do with one. Yeah. Hi, Raymond, as well. Thank you for joining us. So, yeah, no. Inter played a terrible game in this. Then they didn't win against Atalanta, and I think they really, as they say in England, the cat was amongst the pigeons, and it became a bit of a argument regarding whether if Milan would beat Lazio. And honestly, looking at the Lazio performances this season, in essence, they should have folded. It could easily have folded. But the Lazio Ultras came back for the game. They had a wonderful atmosphere. They had a really cool tifo as well. I think Arsenal fans should really learn a bit about how to do a tifo from Serie A clubs because they big banner of a cannon. It's not going to do for anyone. But Milan didn't do the job. Milan turned up against Lazio, and especially in that first half. First thing, maybe, Hasni, I'll ask you is, what did you think of the starting lineup for Milan? Because we knew that Rabiot got himself a yellow card so that he couldn't play in this game. And the kind of thought was he's not surely going to go and select Jashari because they're not the same player. But Allegri announced that Jashari was going to play. What did you think of the lineup to begin with?
Yeah, it's other than Rabiot, it's pretty much that lineup that won the Derby, right? I guess it's a reward of sorts to say that, okay, yeah, we won the Derby. Maybe this is the lineup that can take us through until end of the season. Well, we know how that turned out. Didn't turn out well. But yeah, the Shari one is a bit confusing to me. I don't really see him as that much of a special player. I would actually have put in Richie, to be honest. Richie to me would have
Yeah,
been better, but
yeah,
what do I know? Yeah, Allegri knows better, right? That's how he won us the Derby and kept us undefeated against Inter. But when it counts, this is the result that we got. And
yeah,
it's a bit of two ways of looking at it. One is that yeah, we pretty much this is how we perform against small teams, but does that mean Lazio is now a small team because we can lose to them? Had it been in the top four race,
Ooh,
maybe we would have
nice.
beat them.
I like it. You dissed Lazio fans. Steve, take that. I mean, so Lazio have had a terrible season, terrible performances. I have not watched them at all, so I didn't know how to judge them. I'll say one thing. Um, Isaacson, he was having fun against the Stupinian on the left, and the oh goodness gracious me, honestly, Pavlovic and the way he just wanted to be a centre forward was really frustrating because he would run forward and Jashari does not fill the gap in the way that Rabiot does. Jashari is about half the height of Pavlovic and he's a completely different style of player. So that's where I kind of felt surely if Jashari plays in front of Pavlovic, what Pavlovic should not do is run forward, leaving massive holes at the back. Because what we know is that Estupinian is just rancid as a defender. Isaacson, once he started running at him, realized I've got the beating of this guy, and he just kept doing it in that first half. And you know what? He deserves that goal. A bit of a scrappy goal, but he deserves that goal. Milan were getting caught out by big, just long balls down our left flank and they were just outpacing our players. So, and the other
John,
thing I noticed, yeah, go on.
it's the same issues that we had against the Pisa, right? We lost against them.
Mm,
We have these chances, and my patience. The name that I'm going to mention still has a lot of credit in the bank. I don't want him out, but my patience is really starting to get affected by the chances this guy has and not being able to be that special anymore. Pulisic, you are up
mm,
front. You were at the beginning of the first half of the season practically on fire, always
yeah,
on the score sheet.
yeah,
Bro, what happened? I don't
yeah,
know what happened.
yeah. But again, Hasni, we've had this discussion. Listen, stop this. And Nathan came on the other day, and it was like, stop this experiment with Leao and Pulisic up top. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. The two of them are I don't know. They're just blocking each other or whatever. They're not made to be strikers. It's as simple as that. They don't have that brain for it. So Pulisic was, you know, getting himself in the correct positions, running into spaces correctly, and finishing off in the early part of the season. Now we've said it, and everyone knows. I think both Leao and Pulisic are saving themselves for the World Cup. They are playing below their level to try and save their legs. Unfortunately, that isn't the only reason why Milan is playing so badly, especially up top and they're not finishing their chances. The other reason is because, and you've got to, sometimes you just have to say it, yeah. And part of this has to come down to uh, the manager kind of believing so much in his system and being so stubborn in his system. He doesn't seem to think that Fulkrug is either fit enough or good enough to be starting games. So you can't have that central focus point and then Leao on the left of him and Pulisic on the right of him as support strikers. He doesn't seem to believe in that. What's really weird is that when he's desperate for a goal, that is what he does, hasn't he? He brings in Fulkrug and Kunku, and all of a sudden, by that time, though, he's completely gassed out Leao, takes off Leao, puts in Kunku in his place, and puts Fulkrug in the middle. And then, but Fulkrug gets caught offside so often because he is, we've said it before, the speed of an oil tanker, how slow that guy turns. So there's a few issues going on there. And I think, I really honestly suspect that Allegri probably doesn't want to start with Fulkrug because of his low pace, and what he's waiting for is for Santi Jimenez to come back. Even though he wasn't scoring goals, he was that center point, and he was able to run. And I don't know, but I'm kind of trying to guess what Allegri's thinking is on that. The other problem as well is Jashari. Now, I know a lot of fans were talking about Jashari, and there was a lot of jokes yesterday. Oh, look, Jashari sat on the bench for the whole of the Milan derby, which means he's going to come on for this, and he's going to be like Cruyff. Well, Jashari came on. He went backwards towards his own goal, and what he did, he was receiving the ball from the centre backs and bouncing it straight back to them. What's the point of that? That's the kind of thing you do maybe when you're 1-0 up and trying to waste time. That isn't something you do when you're just like probing. That wasn't probing. It was just like the way I described it, I think in the chat was Jashari acted like a little wall that was moving around the pitch, and people were just bouncing it against him and bouncing it back to them. He did nothing. He was, unadventurous, but he was not in any way, shape, or form there to replace Rabiot in the way he played, Husney. There's not even a shadow of Rabiot on that pitch when Jashari plays, because the guy doesn't immediately look for a vertical pass. He doesn't use his physical presence to smash through players and run forward, and nor does he run with the ball very well. So I think everyone has to kind of say, look, you were calling for Jashari, you got your bloody Jashari, and every time he comes in, either it's because he's being played there, and in essence, what he seems to want to do is, I want to be Modric. He looks at Modric and he's like, I want to be like you, and I will drop as back as I can. The difference in footballing IQ between Modric and that guy is not even worth comparing. One knows the position and the spaces to move into. He knows where to pass, and he's got all the skills to put the ball there. The other lacks the skills and the footballing IQ. So he ends up looking like, as I said, and I'll say it again, like a mini wall that is moving around the defense and just bouncing the ball between players. It's like playing without a player on the pitch. So that's something else. So now, when Estupinian was looking like absolute hot garbage yesterday, and I get it, you scored the winner against Milan, you are celebrating, but I'm sorry, you put in a performance in this game that was shocking. And, eventually Allegri was like, I've got to take you off. Bartesaghi needs to come on. Whether he's fully fit or not, the guy needs to come on. Right? So that's one thing. Bartesaghi comes on and it was like night and day. Yeah. But still, the team were not performing. And Hasni, what did you think when Leao was taken off? Because the guy had a bit of a strop.
Yeah. Again, I'm not the manager, but I would have preferred in reverse, meaning that Ngoku would have started, then Leao would have come on later. Because if you look at the scoreline now, it's just difference by a goal. I don't know why we had to be, or the team had to be a bit, with their heads down, a little bit maybe too conservative or whatever. We should have been all out just to win it, because if you're gonna lose it, then at least put a lot of strikers, because try to win the game, right? It's the last stretch of the season. Why can't we have all the attacking options on the pitch? So what I would have, and again, this is me in my football manager fantasy football mode. Pavlovic, if Rabiot is not there, make Pavlovic a midfielder. You can maybe that's really his calling. And we said it before that Pavlovic he's not defended by any stretch of imagination.
No.
And we have this guy. I haven't really seen him. Odogu, has he even played for us yet? I don't know.
He's a fake. The way I've,
And he's centre
the
back, by
funniest,
the way.
the funniest thing I've heard about Odogu is that the changing room still has his ectoplasm because he's a ghost. I thought it was brilliant. There's some weird phantom purchases that Milan have done for players that Allegri has no intention whatsoever of playing, hasn't he? There were so many things wrong with that squad yesterday. And the other thing I want to point out to people who are not in our WhatsApp group. Oh, let's plug the WhatsApp group, Hasni. Come on.
Yeah, anyone wants to join us, please drop us a DM on our socials. You can leave a comment on YouTube. You can send us a message on IG. I know the IG is not being updated. I apologize for that, but I'll still check the messages on the inbox. So yeah, just drop us a message and we'll add you in. We'll send the link over.
Yeah. Okay, great. So on the WhatsApp group yesterday, I said it was like 70th minute. I went, here comes Allegri, here comes Frantic Ball, and Kunku and Fulkrug are going to come on, and then it's just going to be all piled on to try and score that equalizer. And, of course it did, because all of a sudden we had fresh players up top. But it is such a predictable tactic that even I am in no way a football strategist. I am simply a fan that watches games. And it's like, when the same pattern happens over and over again, you recognize it. It doesn't matter. You don't have to be an expert. And here it's Allegri going, okay, we're 1-0 down. We need something. I'm going to put an actual striker in the pitch. Right, okay. So you never want to try starting a game with a striker seeing if Leao and Pulisic could perform around him. No, let's wait until Pulisic and Leao are completely gassed. They've been running like crazy. Let's take Leao off, make him. He was, by the way, Leao had a terrible game. I've got to say, he did have a terrible game. But let's
John,
then bring in
I want to ask.
Nkunku. Yeah.
I want to ask you. We only have one striker. Why are we still
Yeah.
stuck with 3-5-2? What's wrong with going back to 4-2-3-1? Wait, you have that one striker up top. Fine, then he's not going to be prolific, right? But hold that play, he can a little bit of aerial threat. But then 4-2-3-1, you can have Nkuku as a number 10, Leo back in his opposition, Pulisic back in opposition. All threats.
I know.
Acknowledging that your double pivot is probably going to be like absolute dog, but try to
If there's
outscore
one
them. We've
thing,
got nothing else.
Hasn't if there's one thing we
Yeah.
know about Allegri is that he is rigid and he will not be told what to do. Right? Okay. So what you say makes sense, right? To me, it makes sense because if you see that you've lost all of Pulisic's ability, you lost all of Leao's output, you've lost all of it, then you do something to try and change it. But equally, I don't see in that squad, I don't see why you would start Jashari if you've got Ricci. You're talking about trying to replace a player like Rabiot, who is closer in stature and in style of play, is Ricci, not Rabiot. Not Jashari, sorry. Jashari's, I can see why.
He's Pavlovic.
Yeah, no, and there's no, actually, Hasni, it's not a joke. It's not a joke. Pavlovic doesn't want to be in defense. I mean, I don't care what people say. He really wants to be a central midfielder or attacking midfielder. That's what that guy wants to be. And you kind of think, this club is doing so badly. It's got absolutely no drive whatsoever. Chuck him up there and see what the hell he does. I mean, that's how crap we are at the moment. He would probably do a better job of smashing forward than Jashari does. Because it is really clear to me why Allegri never plays Jashari ahead of Modric when Modric is fit. Because you're losing 80% of that ability. So Jashari clearly is a style of player like Modric, but he's nowhere near that level. So you either say, Modric, are you fit? Can you run 90 minutes? He can run 90 minutes every single game because it's only one game a week. But you've got to consider this Milan team is going to be in serious trouble moving forward, guys. Like really, really serious trouble. Champions League next season. Look at this squad. It's nowhere near. It's nowhere near. They're not even going to touch the sides of being in the top 24 of the Champions League table. This squad is disastrous. And I think when you kind of look at it in the long term, I get a lot of comments, Hasni, and listen, I've watched other pods this week, and I've heard a lot of people say, look, we know you like Roma. Roma is a disaster. They're falling off the cliff. They're going to be outside of Europe. Yes, I probably agree with you. Roma are not going to make top four. Very, very unlikely to make top four. They are now on a huge descent in terms of form. But I can tell you something else. I can see a project. I don't see a project here. You look at this every week. You've beaten Inter, and you start to get some kind of hope. And then you look at what Milan is doing going forward. There's literally nothing to indicate that they're going to be serious. So let's have a look at the stats of the game. People would say, look at the number of shots, 17-7. Shots on target, only 3-2 at the end of the day. So 17 shots, only 3 on target. Big chances missed, Milan 2. Right? And I've got to say, the Lazio keeper did well. Apparently some young kid, only in his second game. Pretty good. And I'd say, all credit goes to Lazio. Their fans came back for this fixture, and that stadium was rocking. It really shows you what Lazio have been missing. But you know what? Huge respect to Lazio fans for emptying that stadium and making a true statement about the club. Right, so let's have a look. This is where we were. These are the results. And unfortunately, the fourth place team has now been replaced. So this is where we are. And if you look at it, Hasni, there is one team that is in the most on-form team, and it's Como in fourth place. Do you see them? 4 straight wins and a draw out of the last 5 fixtures. And they've got Pisa and Udinese and then Inter coming up. Yeah? Inter, on the other hand, this is why people got so excited about Milan potentially catching them before the Lazio game. Because Inter have Fiorentina, who are fighting, Roma, and then Como. So it could get very tricky for them. Unfortunately, Milan didn't hold up their part of the bargain and they've collapsed to 8 points behind. Unfortunately, then it also means now Napoli, they're on 3 straight wins. After dropping out of the Champions League, guess what? They start to sort themselves out. And who have Milan and Napoli got in 2 games' time? Each other. And that game could potentially mean Napoli jumps over Milan. But please, as a Milan fan, don't consider the Torino fixture as 3 points in the bag. Because we all know that's not how it works as a Milan fan this season. So, what was my prediction a few weeks back? I said Milan would finish top 4, but not in second place. We'll see at the end of the season how this looks. But Hasni, last thing to say about the league table and as it's looking right now.
Yeah, all I can say is that if anyone watching this wants to make some money, bet the way that John is predicting it, because he knows what's up. So this has gone
Unfortunately.
really contrary to what I had wanted. Again, I'm not going to make any secret about it. I wanted us to win. I wanted to win the Scudetto, but it seems that deep down inside, it's still the same Milan. We can beat Inter, and what really pissed me off after yesterday night or this morning for us here in the East is that the derby is a bit like what Roma and Lazio are like, yeah. So them is like maybe they're not, before this season they didn't care too much about the league, but when it comes to the derby, it's a big thing.
Mhm.
I'm
Yeah.
afraid this is the road that we're undergoing as well. We're into derby in a big way because that's why we can sell out the stadium, sell some merchandise and all that. But I I really wish for more, yeah. So yeah, unfortunately, I was wrong in a bad way. I didn't want to be right at the beginning of the season when I said that we probably wouldn't make top 4, but giving me that sliver of hope, deadly, deadly, deadly. Not gonna
Yeah, I
depend on
mean,
this team ever again.
no, 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 no. But I think I can't see. I know people are being very down on Milan and saying they'll drop out of the top 4 entirely. I just can't see that happening. To be honest, guys, I can't see it happening. And I'll say what other people have said in the past, which is if Milan drop out of top 4, this will be Allegri's worst achievement in his entire career with that squad, with Modric wanting to play and Rabiot. I think it will be the worst achievement of his career, and he would 100% deserve to be fired. The thing that you guys have to be looking at, and some people are saying, the football being played in Serie A is not of good quality at the moment. You have to say it. And some people are like holding up Como as some kind of revolutionary. All Como are doing, guys, is holding the ball. All they are doing is playing possession football. That's literally it. It's not some transformational system. Yeah, sure. Fabregas doesn't like to play a striker. How many Spanish coaches like to play an out and out striker? Not many, right? And eventually it will get caught out. But there are clubs, and there are so many clubs that are playing a style of football and a level of football that is so poor that you can see Como beating Pisa, you can see them beating Udinese. In fact, you can even see Como potentially beating Inter. But that doesn't mean anything because Milan could just as easily lose to Torino, lose to Udinese, and beat Napoli. It can literally happen that way around, and they will still fall to below second place. That's the problem. That's the problem here, guys. So when you say, oh, why have you switched to a different club, John? I've literally done it because I've had enough. I've had enough of what Milan are offering at the moment, and I think Hasni, probably the craziest thing I heard, as a final thing I want to say before I have to go, the craziest thing I heard after the Milan derby, there is now some unity in that Milan squad and club. because Cardinale turned up and everyone was together during that match and after that match. You could see the unity in the players. When I heard that, and this is a major podcast that said this with about 10,000 subs, and it's quite a major Milan podcast. Stop lying to the fan base, because the fan base should empty that stadium right now, because you do not want Milan to be doing this year in, year out. And Hasni, you can look at the squad today. Look how few players he chooses to select every game, and then think about next year in the Champions League what he will do. It's a problem. That stadium needs to be emptied, not filled every single match. It doesn't help the club to fill the stadium every single match. It really doesn't. There have to be protests right now. Right now, begin them now.
But that's what we're about,
It's
John.
yeah.
The reason why we want to get the Champions League is not about winning games. It's about selling tickets and merchandise. That's the only reason Cardinale wants us there. He doesn't really care if we lose every single game in the group stage. It's yeah,
But to me,
that's what we've been complaining about. It's the ambition.
somebody turns around to me and says there is now unity in the club. Come on, man. I mean, I saw you laughing, hasn't he? I mean, you're taking the piss out of the fan base when you say things like that. But fans then absorb those words and they believe it, and they come out and go, "Oh yeah, we're now going to beat Inter to the league title." What are you like? Just stop. Just stop. Just stop. Top four. That is all they were after. Allegri was after that all season long. Easiest 5 million he will make his entire life. But next season in the Champions League, this club is in huge trouble unless they sign 5, 6 top-class players. And they will not do that. And you know that, Hasni. They will not do that. Yeah? Because we've discussed it. They might maybe buy one player. Maybe, you know what? It'd be hilarious if they sign Mateta.
Maybe, yeah, but they're not gonna spend money on his was it his ankle or his knee?
It's his knee again, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. So stop the screen share. We're back to full, just the two of us. Yeah, so that's it. The two games. We got Torino next. Hasni, maybe give me a prediction for the Torino game.
Well, I think we're definitely not gonna go lose every single game until the end season, because if we do that, we might as well be looking back at ninth place again. But yeah, it's probably gonna be a win. Sorry,
I
I'm gonna reverse jinx it. We're gonna lose 1-0.
So I would say we beat Torino. Honestly, I'd say we beat Torino. I don't have a clue what the score will be. And then we play Napoli, and I've got a feeling we go and
Draw.
lose to Napoli.
Oh
And
no.
no, I got a feeling we lose to Napoli actually. And we go to third place, where I think might be Milan's final position in the league this season.
Okay.
That's my gut feeling. Yeah. And I tell you, I did bet on Como beating Roma, just so you know. I did bet on that because I could see it happening. It was just too obvious.
Guys, write this down, because you got money to be made here. Like Gorillas just told you how to make it, okay? Bets are
Yeah.
on.
No, don't blame me if you lose, though. All right. So I think that's it for the week. If anyone wants to join the chat group, yeah, get in contact. Let's see. Hi, Raymond, Kim, and AJ. Nice to see you again, AJ, after a while. But yeah. Old style football. The guys. I think a lot of fans are kind of just cheesed off, hasn't he? That there's nothing. If it just feels like Serie A is a bit dead, doesn't it, hasn't he? Like the way Serie A clubs have been battered in the Champions League as well. I mean, what was it Bayern Munich score against Atalanta? The only team that went through, was it 5 or 6-1 or
Yeah.
something crazy? Like,
Yeah.
it's just embarrassing, and it just has to stop.
But that's what happens when you got Musa in the team, right? What do you expect? It's not like you upgrade your squad with the players that you signed. It's quite a downgrade to do some wheeling and
Hasni,
dealing behind the scenes.
Musa will be sold to you as a new signing in this summer. When he comes back to Milan, you watch those Milan channels turn around to you and say, it's like we've got the backup to Salamaker. And by the way, Salamaker yesterday was dreadful. Dreadful. Sometimes it'd be nice for him to be rested when he is playing he's like a petulant child, though, sometimes in the way he plays. Really annoying. Just take him off and put Atakame on, for God's sake. and see
Yeah,
what
yeah.
happens. Yeah.
Oh well. Allegri's
Yeah.
team, Forza top four. That's all we can say, right?
Forza, Forza top four. You know, as a new Roma fan, I'll be looking up at you guys, going, "Oh, I wish I was there." But it is what it is, man. We'll try and I think what I've heard in the Roma fan base is that they are trying to get to the Champions League by winning the Europa Cup. I think it's hilarious.
Good luck. They might have a better chance there, by the way.
I think so. They got a second leg
Yeah.
against Bologna. The first leg was 1-1, so maybe that's the case. But I don't know, man. I don't know. It gives me bad vibes. But you know, as I said, at least I see a project. All right, I'll speak to you soon. Thank you, Hasni, for
Okay.
taking the time. And ciao a tutti. Ci vediamo.
Thanks all. Forza top four. See you next time.
Che comunque il calcio è imprevedibile e le cose non sono mai scontate, quindi è anche la bellezza, no,